The wind howled through the cracked windows of the old colonial house as Sarah Fletcher stepped onto the creaking porch of her childhood home. The scent of damp wood and faded lilacs hit her instantly, bringing with it a flood of memories she had tried to bury for over a decade. Her mother was dead. They said it was natural causes, but something about the suddenness, the silence that followed, didn't sit right with her. So here she was, 32 years old, divorced, with a suitcase in one hand, and her mother's funeral program in the other, returning to a place she had sworn never to see again. "Still smells like guilt," she muttered under her breath as the door creaked open. The house hadn't changed much. Same wallpaper, same chandelier missing 2 crystals, same photograph of her parents' wedding hanging crooked in the hallway. But something felt off. As if the walls had been whispering in her absence. "Sarah," a voice called from upstairs. It was her younger sister, Emily, pale, thin, and more fragile than she remembered. Emily descended the stairs slowly, her arms wrapped tightly around her body, eyes hollow but watching. "You really came back," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had to," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. "We have to figure things out. Dad's not doing well. And Jake, he's convinced Mom didn't just die." Jake. Her brother. The middle child and the most stubborn of them all. He'd always seen shadows where there were none. Or maybe he was just the only one willing to look. Sarah dropped her suitcase and took a deep breath. "Then let's start looking." Later that night, Sarah walked into Emily's bedroom, a space stuck in time. Posters from their teenage years still clung to the walls, dusty trophies lined the shelves, and on the nightstand sat an old, unopened letter addressed to their mother. "Why didn't you leave this house, Em?" Emily shrugged. "Where would I go?" Sarah frowned. "Anywhere. You didn't have to stay here, with him." Their father, Richard Fletcher, was a stern man, quiet, reserved, and since their mother's death, increasingly unpredictable. "He wasn't always like this," Emily said. "After Mom died, he just shut down." Sarah didn't reply. She picked up the letter, examining the shaky handwriting on the envelope. "Did Mom ever open this?" Emily shook her head. "I found it after she passed. It wasn't hers. It was sent to her." Sarah studied it for a moment. No return address. No postage mark. Just one line written across the flap in fading ink. She knew. Sarah carefully broke the seal on the envelope, unfolding the delicate paper inside. The letter was short, cryptic, almost like a warning. "Be careful what you trust. Some truths aren't meant to be uncovered. For your own good, keep the past buried." Her heart pounded. Who had sent this? And why to her mother? Sarah's mind raced through the years, searching for anything that could explain it. But nothing fit. Just then, footsteps echoed down the hall. Jake appeared in the doorway, face pale and eyes sharp. "I told you, Sarah. Mom didn't just die. It wasn't natural." Sarah looked at him skeptically. "Jake, you're grasping at shadows again." "No," Jake said firmly. "I found something. In Dad's study." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "You went through Dad's things?" Jake hesitated. "I had to. You don't understand, there's more to this family than we've ever known." Emily watched silently from the bed, clutching the blanket around her tighter. "Show me," Sarah said finally. Jake nodded and led them down the creaky stairs toward the study, a small, dim room filled with books and old papers. He pulled open a drawer and produced a thick, worn folder. Inside were photographs, notes and a collection of letters, many from unknown senders, all filled with dark hints and accusations. Sarah's hands trembled as she flipped through them. One photo caught her eye, their mother standing beside a man she had never seen before, smiling nervously. The back was dated 10 years ago. "Who is he?" Sarah whispered. Jake shook his head. "No idea. But this isn't just about Mom. It's about all of us. The air in the room grew heavy, and Sarah suddenly realized that the past she'd tried to escape was pulling her back, deeper than ever before. Sarah sat on the edge of an old armchair, clutching the photograph tightly. The man in the picture had an uneasy smile, but his eyes held a secret, something urgent, almost fearful. Why would Mom be with someone we never knew? Sarah murmured. Jake sank into the chair opposite her, rubbing his temples. That's what I've been trying to figure out. There's more, letters that mention meetings, threats, and even something about a promise broken. Emily, still curled up on the bed, spoke for the first time in hours. I always thought Mom was hiding something from us. But I never imagined it was this. Sarah looked at her sister, pain flickering in her eyes. We all have secrets, Em. But maybe now is the time to uncover them, for good or bad. The night deepened, and outside the house, the wind seemed to mourn alongside them. Sarah awoke to the sharp ring of her phone. It was a message from an unknown number: stop digging or you'll regret it. Her hands shook. This was no coincidence. At breakfast, Richard Fletcher sat silently, eating his eggs without looking up. Dad, Sarah said cautiously, did Mom ever mention anyone troubling in her life? He paused, then his voice was low and rough. Your mother made mistakes. We all do. Best not to pry. Jake slammed his fist on the table. That's not good enough. Mom didn't die by accident, someone wanted her gone. Sarah stood up. Enough. We need the truth, even if it breaks us. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. This family, fractured and fragile, was on the edge of a revelation that could either heal or destroy them forever. Days passed, but the tension in the house only grew thicker. Sarah, Jake, and Emily began to dig through the scattered remnants of their mother's life, searching for clues hidden in diaries, old letters, and forgotten photographs. One rainy afternoon, Sarah discovered a small, locked box beneath the floorboards in her mother's bedroom. The lock was rusted but gave way with gentle prying. Inside, there were documents, legal papers, bank statements, and a folded newspaper clipping dated 5 years earlier. The headline read, "Local woman disappears amid scandal." The woman in the photograph was none other than Sarah's mother, but the story was vague: mentions of a sudden disappearance, an anonymous tip, and whispers of blackmail. Sarah felt the weight of years pressing down on her. Why had their mother kept this secret? And what had she been running from? Jake paced the room, anger boiling beneath the surface. This explains why Dad shut down. It wasn't just grief. It was guilt. Emily sat quietly, her hands shaking. I'm scared. What if whatever happened to Mom isn't over? Sarah took a deep breath and looked at her siblings. We have to be strong. Together. Because in the house on Willow Lane, the past was alive, and it wasn't done with them yet. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and whispered conversations. Sarah, Jake, and Emily began connecting the dots from the fragmented pieces of their mother's past. One evening, Jake uncovered a hidden compartment in the back of an old book titled Whispers in the Dark. Inside was a faded photograph of their mother, smiling alongside the mysterious man from before. On the back was a date, 2 weeks before her disappearance, and a single word: trust. Who was she trusting? Sarah wondered aloud. Emily shivered. Maybe she was trying to tell us something. Suddenly, the house felt colder, the shadows longer. That night, Sarah dreamed of her mother. In the dream, she was standing in a field of tall grass, calling out, but the wind swallowed her voice. Sarah woke with tears streaming down her face. Mom's story isn't finished, she whispered. Jake nodded grimly. And neither is ours. Just as dawn broke, there was a soft knock on the front door. Sarah hesitated before opening it to reveal a man in his late 40s, weathered but kind eyes. I'm Daniel, he said quietly. I knew your mother. The siblings exchanged wary glances. I've been trying to protect you all, Daniel continued. But now, the truth has to come out. Sarah stepped aside, letting him in, as the house on Willow Lane braced itself for the secrets it was about to reveal. Daniel sat down slowly in the living room, his eyes flickering with a mix of regret and urgency. "I met your mother 10 years ago," he began. "She was involved in something much bigger than you realize. Something dangerous." Sarah swallowed hard, her mind racing. "What do you mean? What was she involved in?" Daniel sighed. "There was a company, one that your father worked with. They were involved in illegal activities, money laundering, fraud. Your mother found out, and she wanted out." Jake leaned forward. "So she was silenced?" Daniel nodded grimly. "They threatened her, her family. She trusted me to protect you all. That letter you found, the warning, I sent it. But it wasn't enough." Emily's hands trembled as she spoke. "Why didn't you come before?" "I was afraid," Daniel admitted. "But now, with you here, it's time to bring the truth into the light." Sarah felt the weight of the years pressing down. Her mother's death, their father's silence, the secrets buried in the house, all pieces of a dangerous puzzle. "We have to finish what she started," Sarah said, determination hardening her voice. Daniel looked at them all. "It won't be easy. But together you might just survive it." Over the next few days, Daniel helped the siblings piece together the evidence their mother had secretly gathered. Hidden files on a forgotten laptop, encrypted emails, and financial records pointed directly at a powerful organization with deep roots in their town. Richard Fletcher, their father, had been deeply involved. But his silence wasn't just grief, it was fear. One evening, Sarah confronted him. "Dad, we know the truth. We know what Mom was involved in." Richard's face tightened, his eyes clouded with pain. "I tried to protect you. I tried to keep you safe. But by hiding the truth, you let her die alone," Sarah said, voice trembling. "And you've been living a lie." For the first time in years, Richard broke down, tears streaming. "I was scared. I didn't know who to trust." Emily stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "We need to face this. Together." Richard nodded slowly. "Then let's end this, for your mother and for all of us." With Richard finally opening up, the family began to unravel the tangled web of deception that had haunted them for years. Daniel showed them a list of names, politicians, businessmen, even law enforcement, all connected to the corrupt organization. Sarah felt a fire ignite inside her. "We can't let them get away with this." Jake nodded. "But they have power. We have to be careful." Emily, once withdrawn and fragile, stood taller than she had in months. "We're stronger than we think." Together they decided to contact an investigative journalist, hoping to expose the truth. Days later, the journalist arrived, and with her help, the family prepared to go public. But as they gathered documents and testimonies, the threats started anew: anonymous calls, strange cars parked outside, even a break-in attempt. One night, Sarah awoke to the sound of shattering glass. Shadows moved in the dark. Grabbing a flashlight, she found footprints leading to the basement door, the place where their mother's secrets had all begun. "This isn't over," Sarah whispered. No, the real battle was just beginning. In the dim light of the basement, Sarah, Jake, and Emily gathered their courage. The shattered glass glistened on the floor, and the stale air carried a heavy silence. "We need to secure this place," Jake said, locking the door behind them. Daniel's voice was steady. "They want to intimidate you, but you can't let fear win." Sarah's gaze drifted to an old trunk in the corner. It was locked tight, but the key hung on a nail nearby, the only one left from their mother's belongings. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the trunk. Inside lay stacks of papers, photos, and a small diary. Her fingers traced the diary's worn cover. Opening it, she began to read the entries, her mother's voice coming alive through the pages. "If you are reading this, it means I am gone. But the truth must live on, no matter the cost. The room seemed to hold its breath. Emily wiped a tear away. She never stopped fighting. Sarah closed the diary firmly. Neither will we. As days turned into weeks, the family worked tirelessly, piecing together their mother's final message and the evidence they had uncovered. The journalist prepared a major exposé, promising to reveal the full story. But with every step forward, the dangers grew more real. One evening, Sarah received a call from an unknown number. A cold voice warned, "Stop this now, or people will get hurt." Sarah's heart pounded, but she refused to back down. "We're not afraid anymore," she whispered to herself. Gathering her siblings and Daniel, she vowed, "No matter what happens, we'll see this through." The house on Willow Lane stood firm, a symbol of endurance, secrets, and the fragile hope for redemption. The article hit the newsstands like a thunderclap. The exposé detailed the corruption, the cover-ups, and the threats faced by their mother. The town was shaken, and the powerful began to stir. Sarah watched the evening news, the faces of the accused flashing across the screen. She felt a mixture of fear and relief. Jake leaned over her shoulder. "They can't silence us now." But the victory was fragile. The family received warnings, subtle and not so subtle. Their phones were tapped, their emails hacked. One afternoon, as Sarah returned home, she found a note slipped under her door. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Emily's hands trembled as she read it aloud. Daniel said quietly, "They're desperate." Sarah clenched her fists. "So are we." The tension in the Fletcher household grew unbearable. Richard, once distant and broken, now stood as a pillar of quiet strength, helping his children brace for what was coming. One evening, as the family gathered around the dining table, Daniel laid out a plan. "We need legal protection, witnesses, safe houses. This isn't just a story anymore, it's a war." Sarah nodded, determination fierce. "We'll fight, no matter the cost." Emily reached across the table, grasping her sister's hand. Together. Jake's phone buzzed suddenly. A message popped up, a photo of their mother's grave, freshly disturbed. "No turning back," Jake muttered. As the night deepened, the family faced the harsh truth. Exposing darkness came with a price. But it was a price they were willing to pay. Weeks later, the family found themselves living in a temporary safe house arranged by the journalist's contacts. The walls were bare, the rooms sterile, but it was the first place they felt remotely safe in months. Sarah spent her days coordinating with lawyers and investigators, pushing for justice. Jake was tracking leads, following the trail of corruption wherever it led. Emily, though still fragile, began attending therapy, finding strength in the small moments. One morning, Sarah received an unexpected visitor, a young woman with tear-filled eyes. "I'm Lily," she said softly. "I worked for the company. I have proof." Sarah's heart raced. This was the break they desperately needed. Together they pored over files, emails, and recordings, evidence that could bring down the entire network. But as they prepared to go public again, a shadow loomed over them, darker, more dangerous than before. Lily's arrival brought renewed hope, but also greater risk. The company's reach was long, and their enemies relentless. Late one night, Sarah heard footsteps outside the safe house window. Peering through the curtains, she saw a dark figure disappearing into the shadows. She alerted Daniel and Jake immediately. "We're being watched," Daniel said grimly. "They know we're close." The next day, the journalist insisted on accelerating the story's release. "This has to come out now," she urged. "People deserve to know." Sarah agreed but worried for her family's safety. That night, as they prepared the files for publication, the power suddenly cut out. Darkness enveloped the room. In the silence, Sarah whispered, "Whatever happens, we stand together." The fight for truth was far from over, and the house on Willow Lane held its breath once more. When the lights flickered back on, the family found the safe house ransacked. Files torn, computers smashed. Whoever had come was sending a clear message: stop now or face the consequences. Emily broke down, tears flowing freely. Sarah wrapped her arms around her, fighting back her own fear. Jake clenched his fists. They won't win. Daniel looked at them all with steely resolve. We have backups. We're prepared. Sarah sat down at the computer, beginning to upload the evidence to multiple secure locations. We'll make sure the truth gets out, no matter what they do. Outside, the wind howled as if echoing their defiance. The Fletcher family was united, scarred but unbroken. The exposé went viral overnight. Headlines spread across the country, and the corrupt network started to crumble. Investigations launched, arrests made. But with every victory came a new challenge. The family faced threats, their lives uprooted once more. The townspeople were divided, some hailed them as heroes, others whispered accusations. Sarah found herself questioning how much of her old life she could reclaim. One evening, Richard spoke softly. Your mother fought to protect you all. Now it's your turn to live, and to heal. Emily, sitting by the window, smiled faintly. Maybe the house on Willow Lane isn't just a prison. Maybe it's home. Sarah nodded, a new strength blossoming inside her. The past was still there, but so was hope. Months passed and slowly, the Fletcher family began to rebuild their lives. The wounds of the past remained, but so did the bond forged through shared pain and determination. Sarah started a foundation in her mother's name, helping families torn apart by corruption and secrets. Jake became an advocate for justice, speaking out in forums and rallies. Emily pursued her art, expressing the emotions she had long buried. Richard found peace in small moments, tending to the garden his wife had loved, sharing quiet evenings with his children. One afternoon, Sarah stood on the porch of the old house. The sun warmed her face, and the lilacs bloomed once again. She smiled softly, whispering to the wind, "We're finally free." The house on Willow Lane had witnessed sorrow and secrets, but above all, it had seen the unbreakable strength of family.